It's your boy, Major Fitness Moves. Tune in as I talk about my training style, my background, and what I'm doing right now in the fitness world. All right, with my boy, Marcel. Check me out.
All right, today we got Major Fitness Moves in the house.
I'm here, man. I'm here.
Keith Lawrence, man.
Yeah.
How you doing today, brother?
I'm peachy. I'm good.
Peachy, man.
Yeah, peachy.
Let me guess, so you caught your workout today already?
Got a little workout in, something light, nothing crazy,
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good, man.
Yeah.
I just want to say your work ethic is out of this world, man. The type of stuff that you do at the gym, I mean, even for myself, because I've trained with you a little bit,
Yeah.
I didn't even know I was capable of doing some of those types of things, man.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. I mean, I'd love to know a little bit about your story. I'd love to know about a bunch of different things, man.
Okay.
How you doing today, man? Where'd the whole Major Fitness Moves brand come from?
Major Fitness Moves brand came from, I would say, to be honest, like Major Fitness Moves started out in 04.
Okay.
Not 04, I'm sorry, 2014. It started out as just me getting into the fitness industry as, a favor. Now, somebody asked me, why don't you do fitness? You making all these videos in the early essence of Instagram and the early essence of the 30-second clips, making videos. And I was like, nah, I just make the videos for myself. I just like training. She's like, you can make some money doing this. And I was like, you know what? Why not? At the time, I was in between jobs. Job market was was on a downward spiral because of stock market crash and all of that stuff. And I was like, why not give it a try? And 10 plus years later, I'm still here.
Here we are.
Yeah, still here.
Now, let's take it back just a couple of years before that. Were you always athletic? Did you play sports growing up?
Yeah, man. I mean, I've ever since I was 10 years old, I would say, been a football track guy,
Yeah.
Ever since I've always been football winner, spring track, even, as we got into junior high school, into high school, you got into the winter track. So it was always football, track, and then summer track, and then back into football again. So I did that until I was, basically 21 years old, going into college, did the whole football, winter track, spring track.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So that kind of laid the foundation.
Yeah, that laid the foundation of how I train, my training style, the mentality I have when it comes to training myself and even training my clients, that, you can be the athlete you always want to be at any point in time in your life. As long as you got the mental fortitude, the focus, whatever, what I usually say to my clients is lock in, focus up.
Yeah. It's one thing to say that, especially with the work that you're doing, but then for the average gym goer who's also facing, adversity and bills and stress and stuff like that, like, I guess the question is putting all of that aside and just applying yourself in a gym setting. Like that's something I deal with myself with running a business and dealing with personal life. And then I'm at the gym, and sometimes it could be an outlet, which I'll get into a little bit more later on. Sometimes it's an outlet where it's like, let me just escape every other part of my life because I know this is the relatively easier part. But it's not always like that every single day because you're still a human being.
Not at all. Not at all. I say this to anybody that comes into training and whatnot. Like, it takes a certain type of individual to be that hard themselves in the gym,
Yeah.
It takes a certain individual to say, like, yo, I'm going to go hard as I can in the gym. Not everybody can do that. Some people need a little guidance.
Yeah.
And, that's what I'm here for. I give them the guidance in the gym. I give them the motivation in the gym to go hard, go past their threshold and whatnot,
I love that. And what I want to do now is just like touch on that philosophy, where that philosophy came from, right? So you did some sports in college,
Yeah.
right? And I'm sure that kind of built up that the early stage of you as an athlete, where you know what it's like to put the work in, to spend the extra hours.
Yeah.
You know, perhaps when someone else is doing something a little bit more fun relative to whatever fun is considered,
Yeah.
you're putting in the hours, you're putting in the work. Now, aside from that, I do know you also served in the military. Now,
Yeah.
I want to say thank you for your service.
Appreciate it.
What was that like? Like, what made you want to serve?
Tell you the truth, it was back against the wall type of situation. You know, me changing schools, you know, in my college career, and, you know, typical, you know, Caribbean background. My parents didn't really have the money to put me into the next school, so I had to find a way.
Yeah.
Because I always said I'm going to graduate college, so I had to find a way to do it. A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, you know, said he was going to, you know, join the Army to get, you know, money for school. And I was like, you know what? I don't know. I don't see any other way of, you know, getting around it. And I signed up myself. It's kind of one of the best things I did because
Wow.
it basically put me in that mindset of never giving up.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you're in basic training and you got tons of drill sergeants trying to, quote unquote, shit on you.
Absolutely.
And just belittle you any which way they can to break you. But my mindset was like, you're not going to break me. Anything you can give me, I can do 10 times even more. So whatever you got, let's go. You know? So I took that mentality of being in the Army for about, 8 years. And I took that mentality into what I have now is Major Fitness Moves. You know, everybody used to call me, you know, the drill sergeant back in the day, but, you know, it was more so me just instilling motivation into individuals, into classrooms that I teach now, you know?
That's really inspiring.
Yeah.
Man. Did you happen to join pre or post 9/11?
Tell you the truth, mine, pre 9/11. I joined up in, I would say that was maybe 2000. Yeah, 2000. Yeah. I joined up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
But
were you ever sent overseas?
I wasn't sent overseas. No, I wasn't sent overseas. I basically I got called up in my sophomore year of college to go overseas, but there was a stop loss. You know, I was stuck in Atlanta for a couple of weeks before we were about to get sent over. And then the day before we were going to get sent over, there were too many troops over overseas in Afghan. And basically they told us, you ain't got to go no more. You can go back home. You know, it was a blessing in disguise. You know, not everybody that goes over comes back. So it was kind of, it was kind of good. It was kind of good.
So you could have had a completely different life right now.
Could have. I don't know what could have happened over there, you know, this, that, and the third. So, you know, I look at it as it was a blessing that I didn't go.
Yeah. So this stop loss happened because there were too many troops that were being sent.
Yeah,
at the time. That's already post 9/11.
Yeah, that was post 9/11. It was just too many troops were over in Afghan, and then we didn't have enough here in the States. So basically,
funny how that works.
That's what I was told. So I was like, all right, you know.
Man.
It's good. It's fine by me. I was like, all right, I get to go back home.
Yeah. So you were basically doing school and you were like a reservist.
Yes. Reservist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 weeks a month, you know, 1 month a year. That's how it goes. I forgot how it goes.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So you basically still had the luxury of a civilian life at the same time.
At the same time.
Wow.
At the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you're 8 years, you said, in the military, right? Okay. So 8 years out, you're done. I guess you got that drill sergeant influence in your life where it's like you worked really hard under pressure, and I can't really imagine anything greater than that.
Yeah.
Where'd you go from there?
Back to regular life, workforce.
Yeah.
So, you know, as a young kid, you know, try to find your way.
Yeah.
Started out, you know, regular, you know, college graduate, trying to find a job, any job, you know. Started out in sales, moved on from there, got, my first like real corporate gig as, merchandiser in Under Armour.
Okay.
It kind of, fulfilled my second passion, which is fashion.
Yeah.
And, I dabbled in fashion as a stylist, working for brands back in the day like South Pole.
Yeah.
That's a old school brand, if you know what it is. Yeah, and I dabbled in going into fashion school.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, look, I always knew that
Yeah.
you have the coolest shoes.
Yeah.
Like definitely. But I never thought.
Yeah,
About
dabbled in going to fashion school, learning sewing. This is back in the day. Catherine Gibbs was a school they used to have. It used to be right next to Bryant Park
Okay.
before it closed down. So I got a few styling gigs back in the day with Joel Santana, Amarion
Wow.
and stuff like that. But I got my first gig, with Under Armour. Was there for about a good 5 years, and then stock market crash.
Yeah.
Under Armour had to cut workforce, and that's when I was trying to find my way. Had to find work, find a job. My first job really after Under Armour was working as a security guard at MetLife.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to pay the bills, man. I had to pay the bills at that time. It wasn't pretty, but it was something I had to do at the time just to find my way. And once a friend, a good friend of mine, she told me like, why don't you get a job at Equinox? I work here.
Yeah.
And be a trainer. And I was like, you know what? Why not? Let's try it out. Like I said, 10 plus years later,
Yeah.
I'm still in this, wonderful field of fitness.
So let me ask you, to get that security job, obviously that was your military background.
Yeah.
That almost okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting, man.
It was an interesting time at that time working as a security guard because it kind of humbled me because it's like you're a security guard. You feel like I'm a college graduate. I should be able to do something more than this, but you got to humble yourself and say like, I got bills to pay.
Yep.
The market out there is not really hiring anybody. I don't care if you have a degree or you don't have a degree. You just got to find something that's paying you so you can pay your bills and keep it pushing.
Yeah, just take whatever you can.
And take whatever you can. Yeah. So I did that. I did that.
So at that point, you had a passion for fashion.
Yeah.
And slowly developing a passion for fitness, or you had already been just.
I mean,
working out
the fitness side was always in me, because of my sports background. So I always still trained and and whatnot. Still always went to the gym. I took like anybody after after your collegiate career, you might take a little break because you just don't have the passion as much. To train as hard. But yeah, after that, I got into it. I had stints, as a party promoter for.
Party promoter.
Yeah.
I don't see you as the party type.
It was, it's just, just like anybody, your late 20s into your mid 30s, you got a little money, you want to be outside and, and, I linked up with a few friends of mine that, became my brothers till this day. And we formed a group called, the Block Association. And we ran the city for about a good 8 years. Yeah.
Ran the city.
I would say in the urban scene for about a good 8 years, throwing the biggest parties in the city. Yeah.
Freaking amazing, man.
Yeah. It was a good time. It was a good time.
You know what's fascinating is like if someone doesn't know you like this, right? Like when you just look at like you get into the gym you do have that military training
Yeah.
where you just go in, you're not there to talk to anybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're not there to try to talk and socialize. You're there to just get the job done.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
give me that corner of the gym right there. I'll do whatever I need to do, whether if it's 200 box jumps
Yeah.
or 5,000 meters on the rower.
Yeah.
You're just going to get the job done
Yeah.
and you're going to leave.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, when I first met you, I was like, who is this guy just coming in and just kind of doing all this and leaving a trail of sweat everywhere? But, you know, like when I got to work with you, man, it was just like, you know, those times when I was on the ground and I was just looking for help, like somebody call 911 because this is crazy. But, you know, I've got to say, thank you for that because, you know, the best part is working with so many different coaches and trainers, and everyone has their own approach. Everyone has their own philosophy. Everyone has their own explanation. Bro science just kind of keeps adapting to something new. And I got to learn as a physical therapist, I got to learn what I was capable of and how creative you can be with, you know, putting together an exercise program.
Yeah.
And not only have I applied that to myself, but I've kind of reformatted that and apply that to my patients who are coming in with pain, discomfort, whatever it is, which is extremely fascinating.
Yeah.
But I think you said you had worked at Equinox. I was also a trainer at Equinox for a little bit of time. Equinox is great, but it doesn't do that. So I know there was more influence.
I mean, like Equinox gave me my foundation.
Right.
You know, I learned how to be a trainer there. I was there for about 1.5 years. I learned how to, you know, how to program, how to be, how do I say, how to be customer service wise to clients, bookings, and, you know, pay scale and all the little nuances of being a trainer. I learned from Equinox. And when I felt it was my time and I felt like I garnered a little bit more pay, then I left and I set out on my own, you know, just like any trainer in the city. I would say anybody that I know now or in, you know, in the past, 9 times out of 10 went through those Equinox doors, you know, and learned what they could and moved on from there. I mean, the fitness game is, you know, 90% independent. Absolutely. You know, you building your own brand and taking it from there. Then is, you know, it's on you to make it what it, you know, what you feel that you can become in the future out of it, you know?
So, all right, you left Equinox. You said, you know what, I kind of want to build my own brand, do my own thing.
Yeah.
Where did that go from there?
It went to a lot of different gyms. It went to a lot of different gyms. Being an independent trainer, you're learning on the fly. Yeah. Learning on the fly a lot about training clients, you know, booking clients, being in different spaces, learning how to train in small areas. Like you have your corner and this is your corner, and that's it, you know? And then basically I learned, you know, being out on my own is like, all right, now I'm a trainer, but being a trainer is not enough.
Exactly.
It's not enough. You know, being in this fitness game, I would say this to any new trainer coming into the game. You could never rely on one check. Never rely on one check. And because, you know, as we know, training clients, they come, they go, you know, throughout your career. Some might stay with you. You know, I've been blessed that, you know, I've had clients that stay with me for 12 years, starting clients that stay with me for 5, 6, 7 years, because they just trust me. But in that time period of being a trainer, I've had numerous come and goes. They train with you for 30 days. They train with you 60 days, maybe a year, 2 years, and they move on. Yeah. So you can never rely on one check. And that's what drawed me into the group fitness side of training as well. And I saw that was another angle for me being a personal trainer to feed myself clients, you know, forever. I started out as a group fitness trainer at Health and Racket.
Okay.
Health and Racket, doing small boot camp classes and whatnot. And, a friend of mine was working at this gym called Tone House, saw what I was doing, and, invited me out to Tone House. My first class there, just taking a class, damn near died, but it was the feeling that I missed.
Yeah.
The feeling of training to a point of exertion, that I missed so much from my football days, from my track days, just training like you never trained before. And from that first day I went in there and trained with these guys, I was hooked. I was hooked. And at that time, I wasn't making a lot of money. Classes were $50. At that time, I only could afford maybe one class a week, but it was like, I'm gonna take it. If I don't gotta eat lunch this day, I'm gonna take this class. And with that being said, a year or two later, I was working at Tone House.
You were working at Tone House.
I was working at Tone House. Yeah.
Wow.
It became, my stepping stone into like big group fitness. At that time, boutique fitness was booming in the city. And Tone House at the time was the biggest, baddest brand in the city. Till this day, still the biggest, baddest brand in the city, because there's no training like that, in the city. But yeah, I started out there, and it propelled me, to do many other sorts of things, and just, in the training world, from there.
And there's you could really distinguish what it takes to be a really good one-on-one personal trainer versus being a good group trainer. So like, what's the difference? What does it take for someone that says, you know what, I'm tired of this personal training one-on-one. I want to make more money, for example, and they want to do group fitness. Can they handle that? What does it take? Because you have to spread your attention.
Yeah, I mean, group fitness is a different aspect of personal training than personal training. Like personal training, you're focusing on one person.
Yeah.
Group fitness, you have to, you have to play a part.
Yeah.
You're on a stage, kind of, sort of, and you're the star. And then you have to kind of downplay you being the star and make everybody else shine.
Yeah.
Everybody else feel like the star. And then I think that is the one aspect of group fitness that, most people don't understand. I learned that, throughout my career. I learned that, from this one specific person, Andy Stern. He taught me how to turn the spotlight off of me and turn the spotlight onto the clients.
Yeah.
And that's what makes, you escalate as a group fitness trainer.
Yeah.
Yes, you still have to bring it in a sense of the energy and the programming and whatnot. But in hindsight, you have to make, your clients feel like the stars.
Right.
More so than anything. That's what brings them back to you each and every class, each and every week, each and every month, each and every year, going forward.
They feel like they're the most important person in the room, and they're battling themselves.
Yeah.
They're trying to beat the latest version of themselves to become better.
Yeah.
And then you play a role in that. So that's almost like there's a psychological approach there.
Yeah.
So you're not just a trainer.
No.
Now you're also
Yeah.
psychologically having to analyze people so that you can impact their behavior patterns so that they'd want to come back.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of touched on that earlier, where you're not just a trainer. And I know this for myself. I'm not just a physical therapist.
Yeah.
when someone's coming in and saying, hey, I want to, I have all these goals and aspirations. I want to lose weight. I want to put on muscle. I want to look this particular way. I want to lift 225 on the bench. I want to squat 3 plates. I want to deadlift this amount. Let's get it done. Let's do it now.
Yeah.
But then they're not really doing the work in the background.
Yeah.
But then it's like, is all the burden placed on you, or do you kind of throw it back on them? And then how do you have that conversation? Because I'm sure you've had that, right?
Yeah. I mean, you have to, how do I say, you got to bring them down to earth.
Right.
You got to bring them down to earth and say, all right, these are your goals, but here's a systematic plan to reach these goals. All right. And this is not an overnight process. This is something that's going to take time, with your effort and my effort coming together, we can reach these goals.
Yeah.
But it's not something that's going to be done in 6 weeks. This is something like you're going to have to invest your time in and invest effort into to attain, down the road, 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road. That's what usually you have to instill and kind of guide the clients in on a personal level. And it's the same thing on a group fitness level. People want to, try to attain certain goals and, have a certain body type by, trying to, maybe take 4, 5, 6 classes a week and this and the third. I'm like, let's scale it down, scale it down a little bit. Because recovery is part of your training as well.
Absolutely.
Your muscles and your body are not going to grow if you don't recover. So let's scale it down. And, you try to tell them like, all right, let's, put a plan together. You come into class maybe 3, 4 times a week with including training outside of, doing weight training and whatnot to attain these goals that can be attained 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road,
So this leads me to my next question, right? There's trainers are a dime a dozen in New York City. There's a lot of trainers.
Definitely.
And which means the market, it's very competitive. And a lot of trainers, might distinguish themselves as, I'm the better trainer because I have a 6-pack.
Yeah.
I'm the better trainer because I have more followers.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the better and maybe the best personal trainer because I charge, say, $300 to $500 a session. So, how do you handle that? How do you define for the average consumer out there who doesn't really know what they want, but they have all the resources in the world, right?
Yeah.
I want to get the best personal trainer for myself. What do I do? Do I Google search? Do I go on Instagram?
I would say do your due diligence. You can do a Google search. You can go on Instagram. For the most part, I would say the trainer that is mainly good for you or good for anybody out there, if you feel a connection to that trainer, I wouldn't say, picking a trainer just because, all right, he or she has the body type that I want.
Right.
Or picking a trainer, like he's the most expensive, so he has to be the best trainer in the city. No, it's like if you feel like you have a connection with that person, then I would say yes, you try out that trainer. That is the best advice I can say, picking a good trainer. Yes, you want to feel like they know what they're talking about, but you don't want to pick a trainer that, how do I say, uses the biggest words to, to explain something to you.
Yeah.
They should be able to break it down, brass tacks, and just talk to you about where you want to be and how to get there.
Yes.
That's the best way I can say picking a trainer.
I love this because one of my mentors taught me, like, if you're trying to explain something to your clients and patients, use kindergarten language.
Yes.
People love kindergarten language because they could appreciate and digest that. If it's easily digestible without it being complex and we're going to program you and this is going to be a big macro and micro. Like, what are we talking about?
No. Most people don't know that.
Yeah.
So you have to always break it down and just say, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to attack it. This is sort of our plan right here. Now, either you're gonna like, you don't want to elevate it too much and be like, this is your, like you said, this is your macros, your micros, this is your caloric intake and such and this, that. And you don't want to do all of that. You just want to break it down and say, all right, this is what you want to try to do, a week time. Have 3 to 4 to 6 meals. Maybe try to drink 2 gallons to 3 gallons of water. Just break it down, brass tacks, that they can understand
Right.
and digest it and move on and feel like, all right, okay, I feel comfortable now.
Because I see a lot of guys sometimes get stuck in this particular point where it's like, hey, I have all the certifications, but like I have all this knowledge base, but then the difficulty is articulating all this knowledge base you have. And I'm really also talking about the physical therapy world, where I've encountered therapists that are exceptional on paper, but then you have the human being in front of you, and it's like, oh well, and then they start using all these terms. It's like, you're very smart, but I gotta tell you something, no one cares that you're this smart. No one cares. If you can't help the person in front of you, awesome that you went to this school and you have this certification and you have that licensure, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Now, I mean, look, I know some of the best trainers. They have the CSCSs, then they have the NASMs, they have, the exercise science degrees and whatnot. And the one person I draw a lot of, I would say I take a lot from him in a sense of just training wise and programming wise and just, being personable with clients and, either from the personal side or, the group fitness side, is, the founder of Tone House, Alonzo. Lonzo has all the degrees, the exercise science, the CSCS and all of that stuff. But he breaks it down to you that you can understand everything that he's doing and digest it and move forward. And I took that, and ran with it for myself, even when now I program my classes for my for Metcon Blast, or even when I took it, and I was working at Rumble for a stint. I made it my own class, but I made it where people could understand what I'm doing. And that's the basis of how I train all of my clients, or how I train in my classes today, is just make it where everybody can understand what they're doing. Once you understand, that means you can then give 110% effort. When you're out there and you just like look discombobulated, it messes with everything from there. You can't give 110% because you just don't understand what you're doing. Now,
the interesting thing about a class is it's almost like you're at a concert and there's this energy where everyone's involved and everyone's part of it, and you could just feel that energy. The room feels alive, man.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of your videos, man. You definitely listen. You definitely shine. You are in your element, right? You are in your element as an instructor. Would you say you like the one-on-one more than the group, or you like the group stuff more?
I would say it's 50-50 with me. It's
a good answer.
It's 50-50 because it's different energy systems you give for personal training and for group fitness. Personal training, yes, it can be great, because you get to see somebody come in where they're at, and then you bring them to a next level, and that's great, But it's just in the same part, you get to see a class, a group that comes into your class. You get to see them, the maturation process of them starting with you and growing and becoming, faster, stronger, or just having more endurance. You get to see that whole process in a group of people. It's like, it's the best thing. It's the best thing. But I would say 50-50, man. It's different energy system. That's why I love doing both. You get to draw from each one.
That's great, man. Now, I want to ask you a personal question. And this is really more personal from my side.
Okay.
So, like, I love training, right? I love exercising. I love going to the gym.
Yeah.
In fact, like, for me, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I can't wait to train.
Yeah.
But I first have to work with my clients, right? Which I love doing
Yeah.
that. And then when I get to train, it's like, that's it. This is the main part of my day.
Mhm.
But, it's like on my side, like I was, for example, dealing with something on a personal level,
Yeah.
right? Something psychologically was there. And I knew that the easiest thing for me was pushing that sled, lifting a dumbbell, putting on my headphones,
Yeah.
playing the music. And that was easier relative to everything else I was dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my motivation. That was
Yeah.
my fuel. That was the fuel to me running my business,
Yeah.
and me exercising, working out.
Yeah.
And then whatever that thing was, I dealt with it, right?
Mhm.
And now it's like, I still enjoy exercising, but
Yeah.
it almost sometimes kind of feels like a chore sometimes, right? So
Okay.
it's like,
Okay.
I love the work, but
Yeah.
like, how do you build that mentality where it's like, even if you have those bad days, how do you still push through it, right? Like you're still a human being, right? But you're still pushing through it.
Definitely. I mean, I would say for me, it's more of a discipline and it's more of a routine. I am definitely a routine type of person. Like, you know me or anybody that knows me, it's the same thing. If you see me on Instagram, I post the same thing.
Yeah.
It's Monday. I'm doing my workouts on Mondays, midday. Or if my clients, I tell them like I eat mostly the same thing, all the time. It's either some turkey beef and rice or a grilled chicken wrap or whatever. This, that, and the third. Like I'm just very much a routine and person, and embedded in that routine is just the discipline of hitting the gym on my days that I need to hit the gym, which is like I'm there Monday, Tuesday, I'm always at a 5 a.m. on Wednesday. I'm always at a 5 a.m. on Friday. Most people know me like on Friday morning, Keith's going to post about, how crazy conditioning class is, like, I'm just that type of person that I'm rooted in routine.
So behind your routine,
Yeah.
you're still a human being.
Oh, yeah.
You still deal with adversity. You still have your bad days, but you just don't show it. Which is amazing, right? I think that's something in and of itself too, which I think a lot of people aspire to getting that.
Yeah.
Dude, that's freaking awesome. Let me take this now to where you are today.
Okay.
So you're doing Metcon Blast.
Yes.
And if people haven't checked that out, Metcon Blast, you have that a couple times a week at this point.
Yeah, I
right?
do 5 classes a week.
Wow.
And then recently it's been we've just affiliated with the new Athex Games.
Okay.
So we're one of the first gyms in New York City to be affiliated with Athex Games. I started it about 2 years ago after I left Rumble. I wanted to now, after teaching at gyms, I wanted to teach the way I wanted to teach. I wanted to teach something that was, the way I train and the way, I feel people should train.
Yeah.
And, I created Metcon Blast, which is basically metabolic conditioning, strength wise and endurance wise. It started from there. I started a small class, just getting former clients, that loved my classes throughout the years to come through. And 2 years later now, it's really catching on. It's really catching on.
So you're packed right now throughout.
Yeah, I would say now it's at the point where people have really built it into their schedule. Monday, Wednesday, 7 a.m.s, they're there for their strength workouts, and then, coming Thursdays and Saturdays for their conditioning workouts,
So would you say this class prepares you for Athex?
Yeah, it definitely does prepare you for Athex, with Athex being a new style of fitness competition that entails a strength portion, a conditioning portion, and a metabolic conditioning or a Metcon portion. So it's definitely, I would say, more in tune on how everyone trains normally. You always want to still have a conditioning base and you still want to have a strength base, because that's what working out and training usually entails.
Right. So look, I couldn't go through this podcast without mentioning High Rocks.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So
yeah,
High Rocks, there's a lot to say about High Rocks.
Mhm.
First thing I want to say is High Rocks has been amazing.
Oh, yeah.
in the fact that it's helped you
Yeah.
with business, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are now competing
Mm-hmm.
and working out
Yeah.
and doing so many things. Like the
Yeah.
average gym goer is now competing, running, pushing a sled, pulling a sled, doing all these
Yes.
different things
Yes.
that they probably weren't doing before.
Or yeah.
And what it does is it also reveals a lot of asymmetries, dysfunctions,
Yeah.
and problems with running mechanics. So it gets a lot of people through the door for me, which has been exciting.
Yeah.
It's been really exciting. And High Rocks has just been interesting as a whole because we've seen more. It's just become so much more popular over the
Oh,
years.
yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I know you've had a lot of people work with you in preparation for High Rocks.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that something that you're also preparing people for with Metcon Blast? Or that's
Oh yeah.
kind of
I mean, I still prepare people for High Rocks, personal clients, and clients in my classes. I've done High Rocks 3 times myself.
okay.
I've done it 3 times myself. Made it to the championships twice. So I definitely can speak to training for it and being prepared for it. Me personally, I've moved on from doing High Rocks. I love the competition aspect of it, the training aspect of it, and I love it.
Yeah.
But for me, I wanted to move on.
Yeah.
It's like, I did it, I done it. Let's move on to the next thing. But I love it for the average person that's never trained for anything or never been in a sport, growing up, and it gives them something to train for, something to look forward to. So I love that aspect of it. For a newcomer that wants to get into fitness, great. Let's get you in High Rocks. Let's do it. It's something, it's very, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's something very manageable that somebody, if you set a goal, that you can attain and do it,
One thing about High Rocks is, although there are different things that you're accomplishing during it, I wouldn't say it's the most dynamic on your body and on your joints. And this sometimes kind of reminds me of like the psychology of a runner, right? Someone like a marathon, like someone who's training for a marathon.
Yeah.
They're doing the same thing, constantly moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
And in the background, they kind of understand, you know what, this isn't really the best for my body.
Yeah.
But I'm going to wait until this really breaks me down.
Yeah.
Or until someone says, you really can't continue anymore.
Yeah.
So do you feel like there's a lot of that as well with High Rocks, where it's like you see the same people, they keep preparing for it, then try to beat their time over and over and over
again.
And it's not such a dynamic thing. Like you're always moving in one plane.
And, it's so funny that you say that, because it reminds me of a client of mine, or a client of ours, the way she used to talk about the marathon boom back in the days, when everybody wanted to jump into doing marathon training and wanted to do the New York Marathon, the Chicago Marathon, or, go to Hong Kong and do that marathon. This is maybe, I'll say, early 90s, whatever, the marathon boom. But from that boom came a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
A lot of hip replacements, a lot of knee replacements, a lot of whatever injuries, because people were just overtraining. And in hindsight, now you kind of see the same thing, with High Rocks, because there is, quote unquote, no real off season of High Rocks.
Because if it's not in this state, it's
no,
that state.
It's they have multiple events throughout the year. So there's never really a time frame of saying somebody can take a break, unless, you just say, all right, I'm taking a break.
Yeah.
There's no real time frame. So, so people that really get good at it and just want to make it their sport, they do train. And like we were saying, you're training in one plane of motion. You just all are going forward. That's it, linear. And there's no real, and in hindsight, like, you feel as a human being, we don't move in just a linear plane. Like you just don't move that way. You move in all planes of motion.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the only drawback for me, I say is with High Rocks is that, yeah, everything is just straight. There's no angles to it. There's no, all right, let's, move in a sort of way, how do I say?
Like you can't diversify your movements that exposes what you're really capable of.
You can't move in all transverse planes. You can't, just because you're just moving linear all the time. And that's the only thing I say, I would say is kind of bad about High Rocks, and that it's, I'm not bashing.
Yeah.
I'm not bashing High Rocks.
No, it's okay.
But, I'm not bashing High Rocks, but it's the same events.
Yeah.
Over and over and over and over again. And that it hasn't really, and it doesn't really entail you maturing in your fitness, in your fitness journey.
Right.
Because you're just really, the only competition you really have is time.
Right, exactly.
That's the only time you're feeling like, all right, I got this time. Now I have to beat that time again, which is quote unquote the same thing track and field.
Absolutely.
You're going against your main competition is time, even though still you have other competitors you're going against. But I would say there's the only drawback I feel with High Rocks. Love it to death. I mean, I've done it, like I said, 3 times, but I feel like in anything with anything in fitness, you don't want to become so mundane.
Absolutely.
and stuck on doing one thing, because as you get older, you want to diversify your portfolio, if you so to speak.
One of the things for me when I learned programming was you want versatility, right? You want your body to be able to adapt to anything.
Yeah.
You'll have an intensification phase, an accumulation phase, higher reps, lower reps, higher weight, lower weight. And then with this one, and it's not necessarily a criticism of High Rock, it's just, I think overall, as a competition, it's done really well in getting people out the door and they have something that they're excited for.
Yeah.
But then it's almost like now you become an overshooter because it's like, I'm now worried about time and now I'm worried about my running, right? It's good for those who are runners, right? Let's just say that.
Great.
Because for those who are runners, now you're really focused on the strength portion.
Yes.
But it's like you're always doing the same thing. Had the competition been a little bit more dynamic, let me ask you, is AthX kind of the same thing?
No. AthX is not the same thing. You do have a running portion, but it's not just running. So like I said, you do have to train strength-wise. You have to do your main 3 lifts, which is a strict press. You have a deadlift, and you have a barbell back squat that you have to train for. Which is then you take a break and then you go into a conditioning portion. Now, I mean, the first year, we did it. Me and a friend of mine did it. It entailed, running on a salt tread, running, and then going into the row machine, then going into the ski erg, doing that. So it's, you had to use different energy systems, so to speak. Then you would break, and then you would go into a Metcon section, which is a medley of different exercises, box jumps, like you were saying, moving in different planes of motion, moving the body from, down and up, doing different lifts and all that. So it's a totally different competition than just, saying we're just going to run and doing mostly, I would say, body weight exercises.
So given that, do you think High Rocks is here to stay, or is the future AthX?
I think, look, High Rocks is always gonna be here to stay, because it's something that the average goer can just jump in and say, you know what, I'm gonna train for this and do it. I would say AthX is still new, something of a nuance in the States. It's been around for about, I would say, going on 4 years. In Europe, I've done it twice in Europe so
you've
far.
traveled
to London and Germany, I've done it twice, made it to the championships twice.
Damn.
But yeah, like it's good. It's something new and improved. I feel that a lot of people can really attain to and gravitate to it because it's more of something to train for in every day, you know?
Let me ask you, a bunch of people probably have this question. Are we ever going to see a Major Fitness Moves boutique studio?
We never know, man. We never know what the future holds. Right now, I am focusing on the class setting, and my personal training. You never know, down the road if, it comes about that, a brick and mortar Metcon Blast will ever come about.
So it's something that's in the background. Maybe
it's always been in the background. People have asked me for years, when are you going to open a gym? And that's the question any trainer in the city that has been around, for a while, clients and people ask, when are you opening a gym? When are you opening a gym?
I mean, right now you're kind of having fun with it, but let's say an investor approached you and said, listen, I believe in you. I think what you're doing is amazing.
Yeah.
Let me help you out.
I'll be, of course, in that sense.
You hear that? Investors newer?
Maybe, I've seen a lot of gyms come and go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would, do my due diligence before opening something that's physical.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Damn, man. Listen, we covered a bunch of topics.
Yeah.
And I got you to talk for a prolonged period, which is amazing, right? You're like, I'm not a talker, I'm just a doer, which is great too. Respect to that.
Yeah.
Look, man, we covered a bunch of things. If there's one thing that you want people to remember, whether if it's about yourself, something that you discovered about yourself, something that you learned, something within any of your philosophies that you've picked up on, what would that thing be?
All right. I used to say this in class a lot. You got two choices. Each and every day you wake up. You could be complacent and be that person you were the day before.
Yeah.
Or you could put 2 feet on the ground and say, what? I'm going to do better. I'm going to be better. That's it.
Love that, man. That's awesome. And then what about for the trainers out there that are trying to, I mean, you kind of alluded to that a little bit before, but trainers who are in their early stage of their career, they're just trying to get their feet off the ground and they're just trying to make it out there. Like, what's your advice right now?
Diversify your portfolio. Just don't rely on being a personal trainer. Get yourself out there. Try group fitness, in this game of being, in the fitness industry, as I said before, you can't rely on one check.
Yeah.
Especially being independent. You can't rely on one check. So diversify yourself, get yourself out there, even if it's training wise, have your personal training clients, work for, other personal training companies, get clients through that. Any which way you can get clients, do that, but don't rely just on Instagram or just don't rely on social media to get your clients.
It's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
I am, you can find me on Instagram, MajorFitness_moves. That's my main page. If not, you can find me at Sports Lab. I'm usually there, train all of my clients. If not, you can catch me at Metcon Blast, 54 West 39th between 5th and 6th. I do classes Monday, Wednesday, 7 a.m., Thursday, 12, Saturday, 8 and 10.
That's amazing. You're open for business. You're still looking for more clients.
Of course.
Still up
all
the classes.
All the time.
Dude, freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.